You gotta have the red light and the
Flag,
light.
flag
And the
on
red
the
light.
Okay. Got it. Okay, we should be good to go.
You good?
Yep.
Set.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Thursday, October 21st, 2021 regular meeting of the North Brantford Planning and Zoning Commission. In attendance are members Nowak, Mace, Sienna, and Galdenzi. The first order of business, if we can, I think we can, the October 7th meeting minutes. I was absent, but we have Robert, Trish, and Ron. So if you guys want to look them over, give me a shout when you're ready, so we can make a motion.
I motion we accept the meeting minutes dated October 7th.
I second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And I abstain.
And I was told to get these signed, it says by Janet and Harry, so we're gonna need someone besides Harry to sign, obviously, on the minutes here. So, at some point before the end of the meeting,
Yep.
someone can just sign on here, we'll get it back,
I will.
okay?
Since my name's on
So it was, sorry, Ron and
Ron and
Trish?
Trish.
Yep,
second.
Ron,
with the
motion, Trish second. I abstained because I was not here.
And then, I don't know if we formally made any introductions, if you don't mind me interrupting, but,
That's good.
our, new town planner is here
Yeah.
tonight, which is a great relief to me, so,
Yeah.
I'd like to introduce, Eric Knapp, who hails from, East Lyme, previously worked in Westbrook and Clinton, and, if you would like him to tell you a little bit about himself, or we can just plow right through I think we have a short agenda tonight, so that's a good thing, but Eric, thank you.
Yeah, I would love if you could just give us an overview. I apologize, because
No, that's
we had
fine.
talked beforehand, and I kind of just went right in the agenda, so please, yeah.
As Victor said, just started here Monday, and previous to that, I spent 3 years as the planner in Westbrook. Before that was CEO for 4 years in Clinton. Prior to that, I was 20 years in private practice as an attorney doing land use law. So I am not naturally a planner, I'm naturally sort of an attorney in my past life. That said, I have been doing this for, again, about 7 years. I've headed a department, again, 2 different towns. North Brantford's a little different than what I was used to do on the shore, because most of what I did down there was sort of flood zone reg stuff, which you guys don't have quite as much up here. Neither Westbrook nor Clinton has sewers, so I spend a lot of my time doing sort of septic type looking at as well. So different things to look at here, but certainly looking forward to working with you guys to help North Brantford move forward. As Victor indicated, I live in East Lyme. We moved there about 3 years ago. My wife is the executive director of the library there. I've got 2 12-year-old kids, and beyond that, I'm not really sure what you have to no, I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have.
Yeah, great.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have our fair share of septic systems, don't worry.
Yeah, I understand that you're not outsourced, but you also have a health district here, well, you have a health department
Yeah, right, yeah,
in
sure.
Westbrook.
Mhm.
So a lot of what we did was, again, interacting with the on-site health department as opposed to the off-site health district. So just,
Gotcha.
again, different things to play with, but I understand that the sewer septic line is one of the issues that you guys have in your plan of conservation
Yeah.
development, and is
Mhm.
generally, gets a lot of discussion here, so.
Fantastic. Well, welcome, yeah.
Welcome.
Excellent. Okay, next order of business under 3A, it's application 2021-14, zoning regulations text amendment.
Okay, I can certainly jump
Yeah.
in on this. Just to let you know, since the last meeting, your town attorney has been rewriting these regs because there was some general unhappiness last time about what they look like. They look dramatically simpler and shorter than they did last time. However, they also look completely different than what you advertised in your legal notice.
Gotcha.
So what we're gonna have to do here is withdraw this application and come back with a new application that is very narrowly tailored just to look at holes and height and setback. It's just a couple paragraphs, but again, it doesn't look like your legal notice, so we're just gonna pull the application and come back with a new application that looks like what the new regs are gonna look like here, so.
Okay,
I
good.
think you guys will be much happier with them, they don't go off in other directions.
Yeah.
And they're really just tailored to what we want here, okay? So, you don't need to make a motion on it, but the town is simply withdrawing the application.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, so next order on 3B, it's application 2021-12, zoning map boundary change for 73 Brantford Road.
Okay, for the next two applications, as you may recall from your last meeting, the neighbor showed up with an attorney. Applicant asked for the opportunity to get an attorney. The two attorneys are still trying to hammer out their differences as to what they want to do. I received consent from applicant's counsel to extend this to the next meeting. So this needs to be tabled, and again, an extension on the date to close it has been granted by the applicant, so.
The two attorneys, meaning one for the applicant and the
And one
other
for
for
the
the
neighbors.
neighbors. Aren't there two attorneys for the neighbors? Or am I
Um,
confused?
There's two neighbors that
There's
are
two
represented by
neighbors. I think
one
they share
lawyer,
an
I think.
attorney, at least my review of the paperwork seemed to indicate one attorney.
I know
maybe
that
two. In any
the
event,
lawyer that spoke said he was representing
Two.
two
neighbors,
people.
yeah. So at this point, my understanding is that there's two.
Camputaro and someone else,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's.
Attorney Lee was
um,
the,
Yeah, right.
Okay, so it is the same. I'm just,
yeah,
thought
so
this letter was from a different
The two
attorney.
neighbors have one counsel, the property owner now has separate counsel.
so those two lawyers
Tho-
are,
Those are, they're trying to hammer out whatever differences they have, on the theory that if they can work out some sort of cooperative deal, or at least
Mhm.
deal that's gonna go to court on us,
sounds
that would
like
be
a
more
plan.
desirable, so.
Yeah. So what do we need to do?
You just need to make a motion to
Motion.
continue the public
Continue the
hearing to the
public
next meeting.
Don't we need to extend the timeline on this as well?
Yes, and again,
Oh.
you don't need to extend it, you need to say that you've asked the applicant for permission to extend the deadline, and the applicant has consented to that, okay?
We have to say that right now,
Is that in the
too?
motion, we have to say that?
You don't need to say that, it just needs to be on the record
Okay,
during the
Okay.
hearing. here,
so
okay?
we're going to have a motion to continue this to the next meeting because the applicant has granted an extension
To close the hearing and make a
to
decision.
close the hearing,
So
And that's
moved.
November 4th, 2021, 6:30 in
November
this
4th.
room.
2021. Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
second,
Anyone?
you beat me.
Robert?
Go ahead.
Yeah, second.
Any discussion? Straightforward? All in favor?
Good.
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Wait, yeah, give me the, Lynn likes to have the motion was.
Trish and Robert,
Tricia,
second.
yeah, all right.
The quick follow by Ron, but he didn't get in there in time.
Rob, you said, right?
Ron.
Rob.
No, it was Robert. All right, so next, you said next two, but let's go to it. So,
Okay,
next order of business under new business,
New business,
4A,
yes.
application 2021-6,
It's also
1332
withdrawn.
Middletown Avenue?
It's drawn.
that is withdrawn.
Withdrawn.
Again, it's tied to the same.
Gotcha,
Mhm.
okay.
Case also withdrawn.
Right, yep.
All right, so moving on then, under new business, 4B, application 2021-13, 290 and 298 Forest Road, R40 District.
My understanding is the town is still trying to sort out whether they want to put the police station in that location or not.
Yeah, that's the-
They have requested that this matter be continued to the next meeting and have granted their consent to open the public hearing. So you need to do the same thing on this that you just did on the other one, which is continue it to your November 4th meeting with consent of the applicant to hold open the hearing.
Consent the applicant of what, to hold?
To hold the hearing open, just, again, this is a
Okay, this
site
is a
plan.
public hearing?
It's not. The things about a site plan is, under 8-3, there's automatic approval if you don't act within 65 days of receipt.
Yeah, okay,
Therefore, they're just consenting to an extension of the timeline, so there's no automatic approval.
okay.
Okay?
So the applicant has consented to giving us an extension to the November 4th, 2021 meeting. We just need a motion to continue this application to that meeting.
That's correct.
So moved.
Second,
All right. Any discussion? Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? All right, motion carries 4-0.
Still got that one.
The game of beaver. Whoever says it first gets it.
Okay, which brings
All
us to
right.
the actual matter of the agenda that's going forward.
Yes, here we go. So, under 5, old business,
Through or-
it's application 2012/13-8, 1536 Middletown Avenue, it's R40 District. Site plan modification for relocation of proposed building and access driveway to the building. Applicant Charlie Rosa Bianca Vineyards, continued from October 7th, 2021.
Well, yeah, I'll keep up with you, but no, do your
Yep.
thing, that's fine. I'll try to keep up with you.
I'm sure you'll do fine. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James DeMeo. I'm a professional engineer at Giuliano Associates. We're located at 405 Main Street in Wallingford. I'm here representing Charlie Rosabianca for the site plan modification application that you have in front of you. To briefly just summarize, the property is 10.4 acres. We're trying to, our proposed building location is all within the setbacks. We don't have any, we're not proposing any violations as far as, we're concerned or know of. The biggest change, or the changes or the reasons for the modification is we are shifting the building from the previously approved location as well as the driveway location. So as you can tell, the previously approved building was more so in the center of the property. Now we are shifting it further north. And with that, we are also changing the path of the driveway. In total, we have we are proposing 67 parking spaces. On site, we're required to have 48. We are doing some minor improvements to the existing barn down below, which just includes the updating the parking. That one.
Can I
Yep.
interrupt for a second?
Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt. So, when you're saying shifting, you're building a new building?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Right
when
now.
you're saying shifting, it sounds.
So from the
Because I
previous
saw some
approval.
on your porch, I was wondering if you're actually.
No.
talking about moving it.
We are moving the proposed building location from the previously approved plans.
Right, okay, understood. So you're
yep.
building a new,
Correct.
new structures.
Correct. So the existing structures are on the bottom left.
Yep.
So there is the existing residential house, which is right under the cursor, and then just above that is the existing barn where the wine is made and everything else currently. So as business is with the vineyard is doing very well, Charlie needs to expand, and he's looking for the proposed building up at the top of the hill. Now, actually, could you go to the next sheet for me?
This tonight is not,
Up into the, or down, that little down arrow.
no, I know,
Oh.
it's not that. It's
Oh,
not,
it's lagging out?
It's dragging on me, hold on.
It's kind of a big file.
No, you know what I'm gonna do? Hold on. Copy, because I'm working off the thumb drive.
Mhm.
Come on, you see how long it takes?
Is there any plan for the, you might get to this, but
Yes,
since
sir.
we're waiting, is there a plan for the existing structure?
So it's essentially gonna remain
Remain?
for storage and things like that. But the main commercial activities are going to happen in the new proposed building.
You want a
Yep.
close-up of one, or is that?
No, that's okay. So one of the bigger challenges with the building location is it is all the way up at the top of the hill. So what we are proposing is our driveway is essentially at the max slope that we can for the most part. I believe max is 12%. We're at 11.9 for a good section of it and 10% at the down below. Yeah, right about there. We're still at about 10%. That's just so that we can make it up to that elevation. Now I know your town engineer has provided us comments, and I did attempt to address all of them. And I know one of the bigger ones was in relationship to a retaining wall in the setback. The retaining wall that he is referring to is right underneath his cursor. In that area, I'm showing it as a retaining wall, however, it is very shallow ledge. It's red rock there, so it's not it may not even be an actual retaining wall. It will just be a rock slope. Also, I did read somewhere in the regulations, and I apologize, I can provide it for Mr. Benini, is that I believe there is a section that allows, if it's deemed necessary, it can fall within the setback. And we could discuss it further if needed. But I know that was one of the bigger concerns, at least in relationship to that retaining wall. So again, I don't fully believe that it will be a retaining wall. It may end up just being a rock slope, and that we may face it with the existing red rock, just to make it look nice. But it's not necessarily going to be a structure that has to be really constructed. Again,
Are these contour lines here? So that's how steep that is right there?
yes, sir. So again, in that area is also locations where we believe that it's gonna be red rock. We did do some test pits, and there's shallow, the red rock is shallow. It's about 4 feet. So, and we're going down quite a bit. However, the red rock is soft, so it's not like there's gonna need to be blasting or anything like that. You know, a big machine with a heavy tooth can pull that up. In terms of retaining walls, I know one of the other comments was about what are they gonna look like? So there's that wall, there's a wall kind of in the top left next to the building where it says gravel, which is going to be essentially what it's gonna be is an area for equipment, you know, emergency generator, things like that. And also like a loading bay. So there will be a freestanding wall right there, yep. And the intention, because obviously Charlie does not want this to look terrible. You know, the property across the street is coming along very well. You know, they're basically using the rock that's on site, and that's hopefully the intention over time to dress up any of these wall faces with that material. Again, it may be a mafia block wall at the start, but the intention is to face it. And then there is one other wall which is down by the road at the detention basin. Again, all the same concepts with that.
So what determines if you have to put a retaining wall here or not? You said you don't anticipate it, but what determines that?
So what'll determine it is essentially where exactly the rock is. Because if we have, so our elevations for the driveway are pretty fixed. We don't have a lot of leeway, so we're gonna have to force the driveway in there. Which means if there is rock, then that will stabilize that slope. Whereas if there isn't, then we will put up a wall. I am depicting a wall just, you know, for visualization, but I genuinely believe that is just going to be rock.
How far into the setback is it?
It is 3 feet.
And what is the setback?
Right there, I want to, it's a 30-foot setback.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay, no. Aside from that, that's really it on this sheet. I know one other comment.
James, can I stop you for a second?
Oh, absolutely, yes, sir.
Victor, could you put your cursor, 978.
Yep.
Right there, I'm figuring about an 8-foot cut,
Yes, sir.
more or less. So are you anticipating encountering red rock as you dig that driveway up? And are you going to repurpose that to instead of put a mafia block, use the red rock if it comes out in chunks that you could utilize?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the intention. We want to utilize as much as we can, because obviously we don't want to bring in, material. So if we have it there and have it available, that's the hope. And I do know we did about 12 test pits up near in the parking and where the building's going, and all of them were shallow, less than 4 feet. Like, I think we had one that was like 6 feet deep to the red rock. So it's all really shallow in that area, and there's even some outcroppings.
So what assurance is the commission getting from you folks that you're gonna do something to the mafia block wall that's temporary? Other than the hope that you're gonna do something in the future? Right, is that my understanding of how you stated it?
So,
That's how I interpreted it. too.
Yeah.
I had the same question. So.
no, so the simple answer is the applicant is not just going to want to look at a mafia block wall. It is his business. Even if you go there now and look where people are seated, everything else, it's kept up very nicely. He has potted plants everywhere. So that's kind of the hope, is to make it all very nice. So just having a mafia block wall, that doesn't promote good business for him. The intention is to do it, and it's one of those where the concern is just that it wouldn't hold up his CO, but the intention is to do it, 5-10 years. It's not like extensive, really far down the road. It's just as he can do it, is really what it comes down to. Because this is a massive undertaking in order to develop this piece of property, because it's a very challenging site.
Oh, absolutely, agreed. So maybe I think the commission members would be more comfortable if we had some rendering of what you would anticipate providing us in the future. Instead of, if you're telling us mafia block, and 10 years from now it's still mafia blocks, we would be more comfortable with understanding what it's gonna look like at some point in the future. I think that's how we kind of come to here tonight, is for that understanding of what you're anticipating gonna do, but we're not really getting a warm and fuzzy, I'll call it.
Also, maybe to follow on that, because it supports what you're saying, for the new planner, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Fourth day here. So, I'm a little confused. So I see that, I know, because I approved the original one, so it's a site plan modification. Like typically when we see a site plan, we see elevations and all that.
Yep.
To Robert's point, we would actually see stone wall renderings and things. So I'm just confused, are we not provided any of that detail?
So,
Because it's a modification?
No.
You are entitled to see it in the way that you want to see it.
Okay.
So if you are not seeing enough detail, then you need to ask for more
Okay,
detail.
so maybe there is more, okay. Maybe I don't know if there was a package, I didn't get any, but just, okay, well, maybe there is more. I apologize.
So, well, in terms of the elevations of the retaining walls, like what we're currently discussing, I do not believe that was provided at this point. However, there were architecturals submitted with elevations of the proposed building, just not specifically the wall. Again, the intention is to make the wall look as if it's.
Here's an elevation. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I was just dovetailing on Robert.
Yeah.
I was talking more like seeing these.
Yeah.
I just thought that sometimes we see that level of detail even on the rock walls.
Yeah, again, the rock walls are meant, we want to blend it in with the property that's going on across the street. Ideally, all that will kind of look uniform. That's the intention.
Yeah. And I personally, and I think the other commissioners want this maintain any chance we get with new structures to see this rural character of our town maintained, and I'm sure you want to do that too.
Absolutely.
So I get that, but so that's a really relevant point that we're making right now. Is part of that is, again, you're saying you're not going to keep mafia blocks, but we certainly don't want that either.
Correct.
And I might as well jump in too. A timeline, 5-10 years, that's pushing it out, for me, quite a distance. Yeah, what kind of realistic timeline are you looking to complete this project?
So the project, hopefully, you know, the building, the driveway, detention basin, everything like that, within probably about a year of starting.
50, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm Dan Bellman, I'm the owner of DJB Construction, we're the general contractor for Charlie. Had a couple meetings with Victor and a couple of the guys here. I apologize, I was not at the meeting a week and a half ago, I had to fly out of town emergency. But the town does have all the drawings on file. If I could just interject and go back to, Victor, if you could pull up that site plan for me again, please.
I'm still fighting, hopefully it'll.
Going back to the retaining wall, I know, Mr. Nowak, you had a concern about the material that was gonna potentially come out of there. I wanted to clarify that the material that we anticipate hitting where the retaining wall is on the top right-hand side, we believe that that's just gonna tear, so you're not gonna get big chunks of it and gonna use that as a retaining wall. The plan is that you're gonna use the Mafia block retaining wall, and what we're seeking at this point is maybe a conditional approval to move forward, and then stockpile all of the brownstone or shale or whatever we pull out of the ground, and use that as a veneer on the front of the retaining wall. That's what the plan is. I just wanted to clarify and make sure that you folks weren't thinking that we're just gonna take big, huge boulders out of the ground and make that the retaining wall, because that's not our intention.
I totally understand, and that's kind of what I thought. I'd still go back to maybe the comment everyone else is having is, why do we have to have conditional approval if you've got the Mafia block in place and it's stable, and then you have all this stone, why can't you start veneering it? Why, you mentioned 10 years we'd have it. I think that's what our concern is, like, why isn't it part of the project?
I think it's
the disconnect for me is I'm not understanding why it wouldn't be part of the project.
It is part of the project. It's just kind of like the second phase. So it's gonna. It comes down to just financing and money to.
Okay.
It is ultimately what it comes down to. So it's not. He does want to do it. It's just
Okay.
doing all the site work is just very extensive due to the difficulty of the site. So he's going to need to recuperate a little bit before he can just handle it. So it's more of like a second phase type thing. Like it's just.
We're anticipating a 52 to 54 week duration from start to finish.
Yeah.
And it's a $3.5 million project right now, so
Understood.
the additional, I'm just throwing another $100,000 makes a big difference on the project just for facing the wall.
I got it. I understand that.
Yeah.
One other thought, are we okay with if a retaining wall is needed, going into the setback 3 feet? Because, right, we can't predict Mother Nature. What if all of a sudden now they have to go in 10 feet, 20 feet based on the site?
Well, you are being shown this design. So if they are not going to build this design, they're gonna have to come back.
Okay.
Yes.
Knowing the area, I apologize. The first thing that came to my mind is a ski jump, that driveway, coming up the far right side of the property. And I don't know the answer, so I'm gonna throw a question out there. How do you slow down a Christmas party and it snows? You go down that, you're gonna be in Pizzuto's parking lot.
That's not good. That's the gondola, that's the next submission.
The gondola.
Yeah.
Come up from the lower parking lot up.
Can I ask a question, either
Yeah.
one of you, is, you said 12% is in our reg, is there some engineering guidance that's pulled from? Or is that something we just pulled, do you know? Is it 12, like, what's a 12% slope?
So, I mean, I will say from my experience working in pretty much almost every town in Connecticut, 12% is a standard. It's pretty standard.
Standard
One-
engineering practice?
Once in a while, I've seen 14,
Yeah.
but they're very few and far between, and then I have seen a couple that are 10. It is based upon the town's regulations and
Yeah,
what
okay.
they feel.
Well, clearly 12 is probably, to your point, if it's more than 12, it's really bad, and 12 is not good, but it's acceptable, so.
Correct.
To your point. So your point is well taken, I guess, is what I'm saying. Okay, all right. Thank you.
So why wouldn't we, I see the picture that you brought up, Victor, of it looked like the retaining wall at the lower part of the driveway. I looked at the
The detail
inception
that I
of
had?
it.
Oh, the detail.
That
So,
was- Go ahead.
so that's a detail for the block walls. So anywhere where we're gonna have to install a block wall, that's the detail for it.
Okay, versus the one at the top of the driveway.
Well,
That's different or similar?
so if we, so if there isn't shallow red rock, like we are running under the assumption, it will be that wall. It will be that.
Okay.
But that detail doesn't show, that's like an unfaced, smooth wall that you're talking about.
Correct.
Veneering with
Correct.
on-site material.
Correct.
Right. So I think that's the only thing the detail doesn't show there, that it doesn't show the concrete block being veneered. I don't use mafia block, I prefer concrete block.
That's what I pictured was mafia block at the top of the driveway. But that picture's not what I envisioned, but definitely.
Yeah.
Was there any thought on, since there's two parts, that one has the guardrail at the top, so that's kind of like at the bottom of the driveway where you're coming up, so you don't see it only from the road, typically, or your competitor would be looking at that across the street until you face it. At the top of the driveway is your similar type wall, if not mafia block, I'll call it.
Mhm.
That can be faced where the guardrail wouldn't be in it, but in
Correct.
front of it, right? So some of those details, we probably want to see something like that. I only have the previous one, so unless that has that kind of detail. And then why wouldn't you show that in your submission? That's I'm a little confused on that. If that's the intent for the commission to approve that picture, we would be assured that in the future, that's what he's going to do, versus leaving him with the promise to the commission that that's what he's going, promise to do. Did I miss?
I
Miss-
I understand,
state
'cause
that?
we're out being asked potentially for a condition of approval, so
Correct.
we're condition of approval of something we haven't even seen. So if
Okay.
you could have, this is your point, if we saw this is the intention, then we're giving it a condition of approval for it to look the way we saw during the application. And I think that's very well, so.
I think the original concern was just that we didn't want any holdup on the CO just for the facing of the rock, or facing of the walls. So that was the original thought process, because if that was part of the submission, then he wouldn't be able to get his CO until everything's completed, according to the plan. So that was the original thought process behind it, but there is the intention of doing it.
What I would suggest, there's sort of two pieces of this. One of which is, if you need or want to see a design for what this veneering will look like, you are entitled to ask for that. I don't know how important it is you see the design for the veneering. The second piece of this is, if, as a condition of approval, you would like to say veneering shall be completed no later than 4 years from date of approval, whatever it is, you can make that a condition of approval. It's not in the motion you have, because we didn't know, but that's certainly something that can be put in. So there's sort of, again, two pieces of this, one of which is, are you comfortable approving the veneering sight unseen? And two, is there a date in the future that you feel you want the veneering completed by?
So the one thing that I can say is, if you were to go with the condition of approval, like was just stated, our detail is going to show it essentially what it looks like across the street. That's what our detail is going to show. And then if you wanted to put a timeline on it, that's obviously your discretion.
I just have one other comment. James, have you considered any other option for the facade of the stacked blocks?
We have. We've thought of a couple, but ultimately we keep going back to facing it with the stone due to that's exactly what it looks like across the street. That's what they're doing. We want to try to make it look uniform. That's essentially why we kind of kept falling back to it.
Okay. There's no product that it allows for a form liner cast into the block, so you don't have to do it?
There are, but they don't look as nice. It is kind of the problem. So it will look finished, but it won't look the same as what's across the street. And you will see a big difference when you're looking at both the properties, especially next to each other. And that's what we were trying to avoid.
Okay. Because I know there's my experience, we've had them form liners and then stained
Yep.
to appear like brownstone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And why would you want to do that when you in fact have the brownstone?
Well, that's
Yeah.
exactly the point.
And so it doesn't look
Like I
as
said
nice.
before,
That would look good at matching, I mean,
that used to be a
uniform.
brownstone quarry.
Oh.
Back,
We're gonna generate enough material on site to veneer the walls.
Nice.
So it just made more sense and economically as well,
Mhm.
to do that at
Yeah.
the time.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll move on from the walls for a little while, unless we want to come back to it. Just going over a couple of other comments that Victor had raised that I thought were relevant to this commission. He had, as comment number 5, the commission may wish to consider requesting a landscaping plan to include a plant schedule and tree and shrub planting details. Our response to that is this is a vineyard. The whole site is essentially going to be plantings and vines. And what's currently there now on site is we have buckets of trees all around the existing barn and where people come and sit and drink wine. So that's essentially the thought process behind, not wanting to provide, or why we haven't provided a landscaping plan. It's just because the whole site is vines and plantings.
Okay, what Victor is putting up on the screen now is the
Yeah.
previous approval
Yep.
with the landscaping shown from the previous approval.
Yep.
This is not your current
Yeah, I was gonna
proposed
say,
plan.
that's not what I saw.
So what Victor's showing is the previous approval had landscaping, so you're certainly entitled to have them match what they did previously or ask for something else for landscaping if you think that's appropriate.
I tend to think it's a, like you said, it's a vineyard. What do you plant at the end of the row? Roses or
Charlie has big planters now that have, there's fig trees, there's ornamental trees.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying, historically, the old vineyards in California have either roses or some other kind of plant at the end of the row. And I don't know what the reason is, but they do it. And then, that would go along with the landscaping, because like you said, it's a vineyard. The last thing you want are big trees shading the vines.
Yeah.
And I'm still, to go off on a tangent, how do the grapevines grow in the red rock? But obviously they do, but that's.
Yeah.
Very successfully, too.
Yes.
Here's
That's
a
the
question,
secret.
There
here's
it
a
is.
question I should know, because I was approved the original, but for some reason, I thought this was before we had the farm winery reg. Do you know?
I don't know, but I will say that even if it
I
predates
think so, right?
farm winery reg, again, they're modifying their earlier approval, so
Okay, so we're going back to that.
you're allowed to, as a modification of their earlier approval, carry forward what they originally did. Now, whether you think it's still needed or warranted or whatever else, that's a judgment call on your part.
Yeah.
But should you want to request landscaping, at least because this is a modification, you're able to do so. Now, again,
Yeah, I was wondering with the farm winery regulation and setbacks and stuff, because this is R40, and you're right up against an R40 to your right.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I was wondering what the farm, because this was prior to our farm winery regulation.
Mhm.
If we put anything that's contrary to what this design is, like if maybe we said, okay, because we know it's a residential zone, right? And so we're putting something that's not a house, right?
That's why I was wondering
So-
about the setback.
So, yeah, so we're like, you're right up against the property line. And I know you're meeting the setback for a residential zone, but this is, you're in a residential zone, it's approved, but it's a winery, it's not a house, right?
Yeah, I reviewed the regs, I did not find anything in the regs that talked about a different
Okay.
setback of this
I'm
sort.
just
But again,
curious. Yeah.
I do know that obviously your regs do have heavier setback requirements between industrial and residential for structures. So again, that may go to the issue of whether you want some sort of screening here,
Yeah.
so that the building itself is not as visible from the adjacent site. Forgive me, I'm, new here, I don't know what the terrain there is as far as, are the houses behind it overlooking it, or are they at the same level? I just don't know the terrain there well enough.
It's a farm property behind, it's basically fields all behind.
Okay.
Well, behind our proposed structure is all fields, and we're down, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And we're down 14 feet from the other property.
Okay. You got it.
Yeah.
Lack of knowledge.
Yep, no.
And honestly, if they're on top of the hill with that level of slope, anybody on the bottom of the hill is not gonna see those buildings much, trees or no trees. So again.
Yeah, it was less about the view and other issues, but I guess my question is, for the lawyer in you, is if we approve this prior to farm winery,
Mhm.
but then we have farm winery regulations now, this is just a site plan modification, I think I heard you say this.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no obligation to go to,
No, you don't.
we're not covered
need
on
to-
that because it's a farm.
Exactly, you
Okay.
are modifying
Right.
an earlier
Got
approval,
it. All right.
they're not starting from scratch. If this
Yes, okay.
expired,
Just wanna
and they
make sure.
came back in with a new proposal that,
Right,
they
understood.
would have to meet the new regulations.
Yep.
So, again, similar to the fact that, you're gonna at some point be seeing an elderly housing application. They had one back in 2007, it expired, therefore they need to meet whatever the current rules are.
Understood. Yep,
This is not that situation, they're still operating under the existing permit.
perfect, thank you.
And just on the whole setback conversation, I would like to point out, we are keeping 100 feet, 100-foot setback for the building and the structure. It's just the parking is ultimately what we're discussing, it being within the setback, not actually our winery structure. That is 100 feet off the closest property line.
Yep. I know there's nothing there now, I'm just putting my
Consistency.
precedent
yeah.
hat on
Yeah.
about if those were houses, this is residential, you're basically, I know these are wineries, this is vineyards, and you want this, I understand, but it's like you're utilizing all this space against potentially if they're residents, and putting parking and everything else. So I'm just thinking it through my head, that's all.
Unfortunately, in terms of parking, with the building, so the reason why the building is up at the top of the hill, it's going to create a very nice view of the existing vineyard and the new vines that will be planted after. So that's why that location was chosen, and there's not really a good way to, orientate the parking to shield it from residential. Because any way that you kind of position it, you're gonna kind of run into that. Is the only comment I have about that.
But it looks like the parking though, that is meeting, this is meeting the setback, correct?
Correct, yeah, the only
Just
place,
this wall.
correct, it's just that wall is within that 30-foot setback. That's it. And the reason why that got pushed into the setback is because we needed to elongate the driveway in order to meet the slopes
Yeah.
and to actually fight the grade and get up there. is the reason why, so. And also maintain the amount of parking spaces that we're proposing as well. Because if we were to shorten it up, we would start to lose parking spaces pretty quickly. Okay. Most of Victor's other comments are, I mean, as far as I was concerned, were all pretty standard. I did my best to address them. A lot of them were just clerical, or a few of them were just clerical issues with my plans, you know, typos, forgetting to add a label, things like that. So, I mean, unless there's not really much else for me to talk about unless you have specific questions on what we are trying to do, or anything else like that.
I have just two things. You mentioned 67 parking spaces?
Yes, sir.
So that meets the requirement, I assume?
I believe it does, yeah.
Okay, and then I'm just curious about lighting, both the driveway and parking lot, and how that's all.
Yep, so,
Proposal is for that?
yep, we do have a lighting plan. It is sheet 8, where we will have lights coming along the driveway to illuminate the driveway, and the parking. They will be full cutoff. There's no light trespass over any property line. I know it's hard to read because there's a lot of numbers. I tried to make a green contour around the outside. It's kind of hard to see. But that's where the light gets to. So you'll see that it doesn't make it past the property lines or anything like that.
So where we have the light locations.
Yep.
Here.
Yep, so there's
here,
one, yeah.
Here, and are there wall packs on?
Yes,
the
there are,
proposal too, right?
yep, there are 2 wall packs.
Here and then.
Yep, those 2, yep.
Isn't, you guys know better than me, what's the standard for parking lots? I thought it was like 5. This is kind of low here, isn't it, for parking spaces?
I mean, do you have a preference? Because it.
No, I
well,
know,
no,
I know
I was looking at Victor when I said that. I
there's,
apologize.
you know what,
Because
illumination engineers, or what the IIE or whatever it is, they have
Well,
guidance on this, right, for parking areas?
I don't think we have anything in our regulations that,
Okay.
we might, I'd have to dive further into the lighting section, but, I mean, that corner you've picked up on is a little low. Would it be out of the question to ask for another pole there? Might be a reasonable request, but
yeah.
I'm also not sure with the patio if there's gonna be any other lighting there, but it's not gonna necessarily flow out onto the parking lot either, so.
Exactly.
I honestly, I didn't pick up at the near zero at that corner of the parking lot. I was more, I typically, when I review these,
Yeah.
check that we're not getting overflow at the boundaries.
I agree,
and-
yeah, I looked at that.
Yeah.
And then I try to make sure that well, without a town planner here at that time, I at least make recommendations to the town planner to be sure that the lights are full cut off. And then the other thing we focus on is the color temperature.
Mhm.
Try to stay between, I think you're at 4,000, which is a nice range for this type of use.
Yeah.
I try to stay between 3 and 4 for residential, 4 to 5 for commercial. And then anything much higher than that, you start looking like the spaceship's taking off from the distance.
Yeah, so we don't want it to be, overly lit up like a stadium, That's not the intention. I mean,
I just kind of reflected it's almost zero, and it's not, to Victor's point, it's not anywhere near the residence, so.
Correct.
It just stood out for me.
it-
The other thing I'd like to see is maybe down the driveway too, because
Yep.
that's with a 12% almost slope, that would be important. Obviously balancing, not tying onto the neighbor's property either.
And we do
Correct,
have-
yeah.
We do have some, or you do have some there, right? And I know
Yes.
the green is
Yeah, so
somewhat difficult to pick up.
it's
but there's
difficult on the screen, a lot easier on paper.
Yeah, it is. So there's one here going down the drive, and then we bounce to one here, and I guess you can see
Yep.
the lumens numbers picking up in
Mhm.
range, and that's kind of how I'm finding the green.
Yep,
So another one here, here, and I don't know if there's one
Yeah.
further down.
there's a couple more, yep,
Yeah, we've got here, we go from here to here,
and then one more.
Yep.
one more way down here. And I'm just forced to go slow tonight with any of the dragging or moving pages, I'm not sure why.
Yeah. So the driveway is meant to be illuminated, but again, it's not meant to be an overly lit up environment either.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
Yeah,
You don't want to see your driveway, we'd rather see that building up there.
correct.
Is this, do I get the DOT for the curb cuts, or is that, are you just meeting what?
Yeah, so that's actually
That's
what
what's
was
there,
there.
right? That's what's there.
Yeah,
Okay.
But we have to cross
Yeah.
the street with sanitary, so there will be DOT involvement.
correct.
The parking along the property line, is that a slope or it's level? Like here? Because if there's a retaining wall, is this a level or it's a slope? I just asked. if, like-
That's flat.
Okay, it's flat.
It's, the parking lot is pretty flat.
Okay.
And it's flat for, I want to say about 5 feet outside of the parking at least before the slope will even
Okay.
start at, you know what I mean? So there is going to be flat space.
Yeah, I was just wondering in terms of safety, like if there was a closer slope, yeah, like is anything going on in terms of safety to, that somebody
I mean,
might have had a little too much to drink from driving off the edge?
it's a rock wall, so,
You can't drive.
yeah.
Oh, I don't know
The-
the space up there.
That goes up.
That
Oh,
is
goes
the
up?
safety,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it went down.
No, so that is the safety, actually.
I'm not the only one.
It goes up.
I don't
It goes
know.
up, correct.
I
It's-
assumed it was going down too.
No,
If you're parked,
If you're parked in one of those
But I was
10
allowed-
parking
This is
spots right
all
there, that's
Yes.
false.
Oh, that's
This
up.
is down.
that's
You
up,
knew it was down now.
correct.
That looks like it's going down.
Correct. So the only wall that is a concern for vehicular safety is actually right above the detention basin.
So is this where the retaining wall is going, this is going up as well?
Correct, yeah. You would
Backwards in my damn head.
hit a wall. So the wall down here, right where the cursor is,
That
that wall needs the guardrail. That wall is, we're proposing a guardrail
How
there.
do you know
That's
that's
the,
downhill?
the
From
wooden
thing?
guardrail?
Correct, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
okay, nice.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of like the
You
Merritt
know it's
Parkway,
from
maybe?
things, you know.
Kinda, yeah.
Timber guardrail? Yeah, timber guardrail, those look nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's the intention for there. Because
Question,
there will need to be a guardrail there and actually up by the main entrance of the building, where that little alcove is. Yep. So yeah, just above that right there. There will need to be a guardrail up top of that, along the parking lot.
Because that's going down. Yeah.
Correct. That is a drop there, yes.
That should be color-coded for those of us who don't know how to read these things. There should be arrow up.
So, yeah, so basically, yeah, the top of the screen is up high, so.
Yeah.
And we're dropping it down and making it as flat as we can where the building and parking lot
Yeah.
is. So we're dropping that down, again, which is another reason why we're having slope issues with the driveways, because we're already dropping that down quite a bit. So,
So a quick question.
yes, sir.
You alluded to a phase 2.
Well,
What is phase 1? And what is phase 2?
so when I said phase 2, it's literally the last piece is that facing of the blocks. Like everything else is getting done, right away.
Okay.
It's literally just the facing of the blocks is like that last piece that he just needs a little bit more time with the project. And we just, again, didn't want to have the CO be held up because of it.
What's CO stand for?
Certificate of occupancy. So like, he wouldn't be able to open his
Can't move
business.
in, yeah.
Yeah, he
Can't
wouldn't be
move
able
in
to
legally.
open the
Can't move
business
in.
and make the money to
Yeah.
then be able to face the wall with.
I just have one other comment. Victor, could you go down to the bottom of by Route 17? Just so my commission members understand that you're driving here, so this is the property line, right? So you're driving this way, you'll see that. When you're driving this way, you'll see this wall,
Yes,
right? So he blends in 0 and you're going uphill.
yes.
That's 0 meaning that the existing ground meets the roadway. And at the high point, this will be 14 feet of that block wall that he's talking about.
Yeah,
So as you come this way, you're gonna see a concrete wall extending this. That driveway goes up.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, you really won't see it that way, just when you're driving this way or across the street, you'll see it, because you'll have a clean view, because you're looking up the property, because the building will be way up
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
So you'd be driving uphill.
So-
This
So this
is
is
14 feet of
14
concrete block that will be.
Well-
here.
well,
Not
the-
that
yeah.
location.
So-
14 to 0.
Right.
Yeah, so 14 feet is actually, yeah, kind of where his hand was, yeah, it's kind of over there, but then that's the high point. So
Yeah.
it tapers down from, on both sides of that, but that's kind of the maximum height.
But that'll be all veneered eventually.
Correct, yes, sir.
Did we have staff and other referral things last time? I was in that meeting last time.
So we did.
Okay.
I also had, so the set of comments that you're working off of were probably my November.
October 6th.
6th, sorry, we're not in November yet. So I soon after I received your revised set, I sent out another set of comments. You haven't seen those yet? No.
I haven't gotten them.
Okay. Maybe just, I'll go down your question first to make sure that at least you've seen everything with the comments that we did get. We had reviewed fire marshal comments that were, are all issues that can be handled during construction, but just items that the fire marshal wanted to point out.
Boilerplate.
We also had the RWA comment letter, which is pretty much their standard set of comments,
Yeah.
Issuing floor drains, if there's floor drains and things like that. That oil tanks be protected for, home heating oil or heating fuel, things like that. So we can get out of that one. Let me see if there were any. I think those were the only two set of comments besides the comments that I had given you folks last time. And I guess if I just jump into my comments, I did talk to Dan, the developer, the site contractor, about these when I emailed them to him. And I didn't think there was anything here that was of issue that couldn't be considered a condition of approval for you folks. We'll just start by pointing out that numbers 4, 5, and 6 are basically just saying that they've satisfied the erosion control requirements. The stormwater management plan has been submitted and included on the plans, which is one of the requests that we made. And the stormwater drainage report satisfies the requirements of the regulations too. So it would basically be the top three, which probably look a little bit more long and involved than they should, but I guess I wanted to be a little bit more specific this time with these comments. So the first comment I have there is regarding the construction of the actual spillway section of the detention pond. And if I jump into that plan, I can show you what I'm talking about. So this detention pond is basically they're digging we'll call it a somewhat shallow hole in the ground, but a portion of the pond construction will be constructed with a fill material. And so typically when we're constructing a structure like this, we want to make sure that the fill berms are constructed appropriately. So when it fills up with water, you don't have water seeping through or underneath them. So what I did was, since I didn't want to get into let me find it again. Since I didn't want to get into a back and forth with the engineer as far as what am I looking for in consideration to what they usually provide, I conveniently enough already have what I was calling a guidance document for him to consider that basically takes you through a construction sequence for building those berms, making sure that you're scarifying you're stripping topsoil, scarifying the soil that you're building the berm on top of, making sure that the material that you use to build that berm is not, I'm not saying they would have used millings, but there's nothing on the plan that didn't say they couldn't come in and try to build it with beach sand or millings or something like that. You know, just highlighting that they're gonna use the appropriate material, and this is all, these are all notes that are just pulled from standard construction, DOT-type construction projects, so these notes have basically been vetted, is what I'm saying, so.
Knowing that you're looking for that, not a problem.
Oh, okay,
I
and so.
understand completely.
And I knew he probably had his own boilerplate of notes anyway to do something like that, but I figured if you folks saw the guidance document that I was looking for, then I was hoping to put you folks at ease with that. The next was that was that one. So that was for comment 2. Comment 1 was just pointing out that there's a section in your regulations that says that the P&Z can recommend that the applicant notify Connecticut DOT as required by that section 62.5.6 D3, which is basically the again regarding the detention basin, and in this case, this detention basin has an overflow point right here. So if we get a 100-year storm or thereabouts, this starts overflowing towards the DOT right-of-way, which for me in my review, I'm like, okay, that's DOT. I don't need to weigh in there, but you folks may want to, as part of your conditions, consider requiring that they notify the DOT of this design component so they can weigh in on any design criteria they might want to add to the proposal. This currently, I believe, and the engineer can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it during a higher or a larger storm would overflow here and drain down to a catch basin right here along the edge of the travel way. It's not going to drain into the travel way.
Actually,
Or am I off there?
Yeah, that weir, or that emergency overflow weir, is if we got back to back 1,000-year storms. So in the 100-year storm, it doesn't actually, that's not
Okay.
utilized. So that's like added safety, in case,
Yep.
the top of the catch basin or the outlet control structure gets clogged. There is a way for the water to get out. That's the intention of having that weir, but no water is being designed to go through there. To circle back on the DOT note, we do need DOT approval anyway, because we are doing work within their right of way. So it's.
They're gonna review.
They have to review the entire.
So when you said back-to-back 1,000-year storms, were you just being facetious, or you?
No, he was being serious.
Yeah. So basically.
So what is it?
Engineering principle is we design to a 100-year storm. That's pretty much what we look at, and during the 100-year storm.
That's what that's designed to.
Yep, the elevation, what is it? Yeah, I will have 0.71 feet until water hits that weir. So I still have more to go.
After a 100-year storm, you have
after 100
7.1
year-
feet.
Yes,
So
correct.
All right.
0.71.
0.71 feet.
So it's just under a foot of freeboard
Gotcha.
at the 100-year storm until it hits that overflow weir.
And then
The thing that I just, like to caution, and I think we both understand the design storm is not the storm that happens. A 100-year storm is a design storm with a certain amount of rainfall that falls over a 24-hour period with, a little bit of rain in the beginning, more intense in the middle, and tapering towards the end of that 24-hour period. Those aren't the storms that we typically get. So I think, there will probably be times that you'll see that overflow just because the storms we got are not 100-year storms. They're higher intensity over shorter periods of time.
Absolutely.
And I just want to make sure that, again, that the DOT, it's not a town road, it's not a town right-of-way, it's not a town drainage system here, but, there are chances where either this structure, the overflow structure, or the outlet control structure clogs up, which we already discussed, or that this weir may overflow. I just want to make sure that DOT has their chance to look at it,
Yeah.
and they're gonna.
And-
They're gonna,
so
right.
What's triggering the DOT? This is the right, you're in it right away right here?
Yes.
15 feet back or something?
No, so we're actually, because we're connecting into the sewer.
Okay, yeah,
We have to cross the street.
Yeah, so we have to go into the street anyway. But to give you an idea, my outlet control structure, the top of that grate
This
is,
is right here in the pond.
yeah, is, what is it at? It's at, 906. Then there's another half a foot before it gets to the weir. So my 100-year storm doesn't even make it to the top of the outlet control structure. And it'll start pouring into there first before it even hits the weir. Then, if that isn't enough, basically what I'm trying to, say is just, it's kind of been built out. I tried to add as many redundancies as I could with it because it is going onto a state road.
I do like the point Victor's making, and I don't know if the person, when you submit it for crossing a road for a sanitary line, is gonna be cognizant to look at this and say
They're
just.
definitely-
Yeah,
Alright, there we go.
they have to look at the whole, if we have to
Alright.
go in front of them,
So they're
they
gonna
have to
know.
look at everything I've
All
had.
watershed, in taking consideration.
Yes, okay.
the
Yeah.
substrate of the material there and everything, so they're.
Yep, so they gotta look at my drainage, they gotta look at everything from top to bottom, because we are going in front of them for one thing.
Gotcha.
Okay, and the last, I think the last item of, maybe of interest there would be that I was still looking for, in the detention pond, the seed mix that they recommended wasn't one that would necessarily withstand, withstanding infrequent inundations. So the seed mix they recommended was probably good for the side slopes, but for any of that wetted perimeter of the pond, I would recommend just a seed mix that, is gonna not die from getting inundated by these storms. It's not a.
We actually use a hybrid, DOT spec, hydroseed mixture, and we can give.
Yeah, so again, it's something that, again, just, I think all these points again are something that you folks could consider as conditions of approval. I'm not saying you have to, but I was comfortable with the design of the detention pond. There were just these couple of things that I wanted to point out. And again, this boilerplate set of notes, he's already admitting that, yeah, I get it. And again, it was just to make sure, I know it sounds ridiculous that no one's gonna come in and fill the berms with beach sand, but I've seen some crazy things happen over the years, and I'd rather have it in the approval as to, what the construction process and materials are gonna be, instead of relying on, the after the fact methodology.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, go ahead. I have a question on just, are you able to, have you considered, is it possible to include any kind of like sustainable elements, low impact, any of the facilities, the parking areas, pervious surfaces, where there traditionally be impervious surfaces?
so our.
Use of water to the vineyard from the downspouts, anything, I mean, it'd be really nice, because it's it's a beautiful building, rural character, farming, what we all support. Be great to see some kind of green elements and things, anything like that.
So,
as part of it?
I mean, in terms of the pervious and impervious, our driveway is paved, our parking lot is gravel.
Okay, parking lots.
And we're paved because we need to be paved,
Yeah, no, you
especially
do.
at that slope.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're gonna be paved from the bottom, pretty much all the way up to the start of the parking lot.
Your parking lot's gravel, okay.
Correct, so that's intended to be gravel. In terms of other green, I mean, the whole site is pretty much vines and.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know
I
fully
meant
how
the-
to
I meant
answer
the
that.
buildings and the
So I
structure
could-
parts.
I could kind of maybe put you at ease a little bit too. So there are, the detention pond itself was sized to handle what's called the water quality volume. So
Yeah.
that first inch of runoff that, is making its way through their stormwater conveyance system, the storm pipes to the pond itself, the pond is designed to accept that stormwater and infiltrate it and not allow it to drain out off-site. There's also, we may forget that this was one of the components I believe it's already
It's all right.
built and existing as part of the original approval, but there's a rain garden that was proposed
Oh,
and
yeah.
designed over
Yep.
at this corner of the property, so, and also the drainage, the grass swells, even though they are steep in sections, you know, they are points where the water hits first on smaller storms. They do act to infiltrate, and they are considered LID, low-impact development measures that have been incorporated into the project. So I know we like to focus on those impervious pavers, and I'm a fan of them in certain situations, but in this case, since it's a gravel parking lot, I think it's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
So Victor, to understand correctly, so they answered your bullet number 12 and 13 in original submission. You're satisfied with the perk test and the water infiltration in the said pond?
Yeah, because I think if you compare the two most recent sets of plans, I think they probably realized that the pond needed to be redesigned based on the soil test they did. They lifted the bottom of the pond up, and I think it's been spread out a little bit over this area here, so they're above any indication of a high water table there.
Okay.
At least by the deep testing that they've done.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows too, just up, like right above that detention basin, if you move your cursor up just like yeah, right there, there is an existing detention basin there right now. We are actually expanding it and kind of pulling it closer to the road, and we're actually picking it up a little bit to give you an idea. So there's actually already a detention basin there that's lower than what we are proposing. And we're essentially using the same structure that's already there. You know, it's in the same location and everything. So we're, you know, mindful of what's there, and yeah, we did pick it up from the previous submission.
Comments? I've not seen this. Is it possible to see
What would you like?
the building structure?
Yeah, do you want this one closer?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yes, sir.
Did you guys see this last week?
No.
Oh, makes sense.
Do you have any of the files for that?
I don't think I have all of those now.
Any of mine are cool? It's gonna be hard to send a file. I can email it to you, but it might, it's such a big file.
I see.
I mean, we have them in, obviously, the paper sets that were submitted.
So there's no, you don't have food, just food trucks, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Wow, look at that.
You know what? I'll just stand here, it's fine. So that should have been part of the
Prepared.
original submission.
The architecturals, I believe, were
Yeah.
submitted with these original submittal.
So this is the front view as you're driving up?
Yes,
This is
yes,
facing
yeah.
Pizzuto?
Yep, so if you're standing on the road, that's what you see. Like that's that face. Yeah, so, yeah, it's that face right there, yeah.
Beautiful.
Wow, it's beautiful. Wow. Nice. Okay.
We'll have an ephes private exterior with barrel tile roof.
Thank you.
You take these back so we don't.
Yeah, so I don't spill my water
Yeah,
on it.
exactly.
So I'm good for that.
Thank you. Great. All right. This is a continuation just of a site plan. So it's never a public hearing, right?
No, correct.
It's just a site plan, yeah. Site plan modification.
So I know I don't have any problems with Victor's comments or conditions, or them being conditions of approval. I guess the only thing that we would ask the commission is if they'd be willing to, in terms of the retaining wall and facing that, we will, if you'd be willing to make it a condition of approval, we will supply details to staff regarding what it's gonna look like. And again, we're gonna the details are basically gonna mirror what's across the street. That's what it's gonna be. I believe that's the only major concern that I've heard from the commission tonight is that one, so.
So, let me ask the commission members, so Eric gave us two, kind of separated the two thoughts. So, first of all, do we feel that we need to see a rendition of the final proposed facing? Number one, and then do we make it a condition of approval, and do we make it time-bound? So first of all, let me start with the first one, A. Do we feel we want to see what it looks like so that they submit that to staff?
And leave it up to staff? I
Yeah,
don't
but the
oppose that.
difficulty
Is that-
is-
Yeah, right.
I have no power to change the approval at that point in time. So
Mhm.
whatever it looks like, it looks like that, I'm stuck.
Yeah, okay, I
So,
understand.
I have no judgment as whether it looks good, bad, or otherwise. If you wanna have them come back in 2 weeks with a mock-up of what it looks like, that's up to you.
Yeah, okay.
But asking your staff to look at what it's gonna look like, that doesn't really help me
No,
very
I
much.
understand, yeah. So how do we feel about that? Let's deal with that first one.
I'm on the fence. I'm tossing it back and forth because we've let staff do other things, but was that just because we didn't have a town planner? I feel like, again, thinking of like precedent, I think I could go either way, but, we're the type that we wanna see it versus don't, versus leaving it up to staff on some things. I could go any way.
I
Well-
think to Eric's point, he has nothing, he can't do
Well,
anything but say, thank you for the submission. I'll put
Exactly.
it in the file."
I don't have any discretion on how it looks.
Yeah, it depends.
So if you don't like how it looks when it gets built, and you come back to me and you say, why didn't you stop it?
Yeah.
The answer is, all you asked for is that they give me a mock-up on
Yeah,
how it
yeah.
looks.
Mhm.
And they did. So if you want to see how it looks, that's up to you, but don't expect me to be the architectural.
Yes,
Yeah,
understood,
I think-
understood.
Okay, let me put my thoughts on the table.
Yes.
Do I want to see the final product? Absolutely. I want to see a timeline, but I'm not crazy. I understand you need to get the building up, you need to get a CO. It could, I want to see a picture of the final product and a timeline. So let's say in 5 years, it's going to look like that picture with the stone veneer, and 5 years come by and it ain't so, okay? If it, I don't want to be cynical, but if it's not in writing, it ain't so, I'm hearing you're gonna make it look like something,
Yeah.
but without the documentation to back it up. We need that. But, I am in favor of, the phase portion of it, with the mafia blocks to get the CO. But on the same token, at that point, you get the CO, or, at some point, the clock starts ticking on finishing the project within, whatever, 3, 5, 2 years.
I mean,
A week and a half.
I know ideally, it'd be nice for as much time as we can. What I'd like to propose is that, basically, I'd like it to be a condition that we would supply staff, so 5 years is when we would like it to be, in order to finish the facing. Again, I'm basically trying to verbally say like what the detail is going to look like, and I get that you want to see it, but then it also kind of comes down to what gets put exactly on the detail may not be exactly what it looks like too, is the only kind of other argument. Like, so I just, again, we want it to look like that. My detail's gonna show it looking like that. You know, I don't know.
Are you, in your detail, you mean, like, in terms of color scheme, or this block 10 up and 5 over from the right, the plans that said it was square, but it's really round? Because I don't think we're so much concerned about that level of detail. I think it's more
Correct.
of it blending.
Correct. So essentially what's going to get submitted, in my mind, what I'm planning on submitting, is essentially like a rendering of what the wall is going to look like, which is going to be what's across the street. You know, lack of a better description, I mean, even a picture, like, you know, it's going to look like that is
I
the
think
intention.
I think our climate is usually, we like to be more thorough,
Yeah.
you know, but then, you know, we're flexible, you know, on the other end.
Personally,
So we'd want to see.
I mean, I have no doubt, because a building that looks that beautiful, you're not gonna
Yeah.
have concrete block walls. However, I think, as we said, and Ron just said it, I think, for me, I think precedent-wise, we always, when we have site plans, we have the details that we see, and we see this detail, and we're approving the detail we see. That way, it was clear, that was the expectation, right? And then I think there has to be some time limit. It can't just be left open, because I think that's fair to both parties, to be honest with
Yeah.
you, so.
And like, you know, just like, you know, for a couple meetings ago, we had somebody show exactly what siding they were gonna put on their project.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah,
I
we
agree.
tend to be a little bit more thorough.
You have any comments
agree.
beyond that?
Yeah, I think we want to see it.
Yeah.
What his intent is, right?
Yeah.
5 years from now, something better could come along that, wow, we should have had that in it, so.
Yeah.
Is there a language in there that says this or equivalent or better?
It's
So
almost-
he's not locked into, I'm gonna build a herringbone pattern versus this pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's our flavor of where we're going with it, right?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty easy for James to give you a sketch or a drawing of the plain Mafia block look, and then have
Yeah.
a secondary drawing, if you will, of what it would look like with the veneer on it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's-
To me, from what
Yeah,
I'm
fair enough.
I like
gathering
that word,
from
that is,
comments,
that's our flavor.
Mhm.
I think
Tend to
that's,
be more thorough.
Yeah. I think I'm hearing that we're all open to and fully understandable that it's gotta be a phasing, because you need to get a CO and start making some money.
Yeah.
And then that'll come later, but again, I think we want it somewhat
You
time
wanna
bound,
see
so
it.
it's
Now,
not
is it-
forever.
is
And I know you wouldn't, I'm convinced you wouldn't let it go anyway. You'd do it as expeditiously as you could, because you have a beautiful building, but I think to do our due diligence, we just need some kind of time frame on it as well.
is that something that can be part of a conditional approval? That
Yeah, the timeline.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, because the special permit runs for 5 years, in
That's-
theory, they have 5 years to complete the improvements, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to shorten it, be closer than 5 years, that's up to you. But at the very least, you know that whatever the final version of this has to look like, has to be there within 5 years.
How long of a construction project is this?
So it's 52 weeks, 52, 54 weeks.
So it's a year, so it's a year-long project. So if it was just based on the site plan approval, that would give 4 years after it's open. I'm not saying that's what we should do, I'm just saying for our own heads, if we just kept it to the site plan, then it would be the time would be 4 years. 'cause it's-
Once they're open, it would be a
4-year.
four-year
And,
window.
and
Four years
that's,
to
and
complete.
and we, yeah, that's perfectly fine with us, if
I think that's
that's.
appropriate. 5 years, or
Correct.
looking at it from the other way.
Okay. It is possible to get a CO with the Mafia block walls, correct?
That's structural, the
Yeah,
veneer is
that
just
shouldn't
architectural.
affect
Yeah.
the CO portion of it from the building
Yeah.
side of it. It doesn't become a zoning violation until it's clear that they're not going to complete the plan as submitted. So we can let them open with the Mafia blocks as opposed to the veneering. And then in X number of years, when I go back and I knock on the door and I say, where's the veneering? And they say, sorry, we just never got around to it. At that point, I would come back to you folks and say, okay, guys, they didn't do what they said, do you want me to issue a cease and desist order? Hopefully it will never come to that, but that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, I like that plan.
Okay. Any other further discussion on that, or anything else on this
No,
We're good.
application?
I'm good.
Okay, it sounds, and again, up to you folks, it sounds like you want them coming back with these additional details for you to review. So I'm gonna suggest that this matter be continued to November 4th like the other matters there, so that you can see the additional details on the record, as opposed to me doing it in private.
Yep.
Okay, and again, when did this open, Victor? Do we need to get a continuance from the applicant, consensus from the applicant, or is this?
What do we need? We don't need one until 65 days?
It's 65 days from when it was received, so yeah, I don't
I
know
don't
when.
think we've been that deep into it yet, right? No.
I don't,
It's only
I don't-
continued from October.
yeah, I don't think
Okay,
so.
that's fine, then we don't need continuance in your list, so we're just gonna
Right.
move it, just ask to be continued to the, move it be continued to the November 4th meeting.
Anyone- yeah.
I make a motion to continue application 2012/13-8, 1536 Middletown Avenue, to our next regular meeting on November 4th.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah,
Oh.
a quick question, calm down.
I had 3 cups of
When
coffee.
were you looking to break ground?
September 30th.
Yeah, that's why I've kind of been pushing, is because, we've been wanting to break ground. This has been a long process for Mr. Rosabianca, and he's right there, he's ready to go. And that's why I was kind of trying to push for the condition of approval and us to be able to come back with the information. So that he can at least start the process, start working.
There's my answer. There's a motion on the floor.
Yeah, okay. Any more discussion on it?
Nope.
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. Thanks.
And just so I know, are there any other concerns or anything else the commission would like to see for the next meeting? Just so I make sure that I can have it for you. Just any even little thing, it doesn't,
I think it was just the facing, right?
well, yeah.
Well, and again, you hadn't responded to Victor's most recent engineering report, so just make sure that we have something from you
Yes.
just indicating that we're in conformance with the most recent report, okay?
Yeah, or we'll work through that, yeah.
I guess, hearing what you're asking for is that, intent is one thing. It's gotta be in writing. I mean, we've got all this documentation that we have to adhere to.
No, I understand, I gotta try.
Yeah, no.
As simple as that, I gotta try, Again.
We respect that.
Yep.
So James, great point. So Victor had brought up the landscaping. How does the commission feel about leaving it as is? Because we didn't really, that was one bullet point that we didn't really kind of conclude as a condition on the motion. So we didn't, our discussion kind of ended and kind of went on to other things. How does the commission feel about a landscaping plan? Even though it's all vineyard, if we're happy with it, we'll leave that comment alone and move forward, so James doesn't come back with incomplete information.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know
that's
the
why I asked.
landscaping plan,
Okay.
but I don't know how everybody else feels.
It's a vineyard.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident the building that beautiful will be appropriately landscaped. I think the veneer is such
The
a,
roses at the end of the road.
it's such an obstructed view, and
Mhm.
I think when we approve plans, we usually have that level of detail, so that's why we kind of carved that one out.
Okay.
That's how I feel about it.
Okay,
All right,
I
thank
think
you.
we're good. Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, you ready for the next?
Well, this would be, yeah, this would, add this to other business, this is really other business, so if you wanna add it now, this would be the time to add it.
Okay. You want to request that for me, or
Um,
do you mind?
no problem, let me jump into that.
Can we go on?
Actually, I have this one here, I kept for myself. Okay. We have, they've been talking with Victor, a request to release the last $9,000 of a bond for subdivision at 942 Totucket Road. It's a PCC application 2005 /06-22. You have Victor's memo he's passing out now indicating that he has reviewed it with the applicant and believes that at this point, there's nothing remaining to be done and the bond can be released. So we're asking that it be added as a agenda item this evening under other business, and that you take this up with a request to release the remaining bond.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, you want to make a motion to
yeah,
add
I
it?
make a motion to add on the agenda, other business, I guess we'll say it's B,
6B, yeah.
6B. A releasing of the bond for the subdivision, re-subdivision of 942 Totucket Road, application 2005/6-22.
Okay, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Why did we hold out 9,000?
Well, we'll get to that when we discuss it. We're doing the
Adding
agenda.
it to the agenda.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, we're adding it to the
Yes,
agenda right now.
Yes, add it to the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, we'll add it under 6B, but we need 6A first. So under other business, 6A, pre-application, 28 Brantford Road, Sal Maritoli, Oakwood Development.
They,
I guess they're not here.
Lyndon, they are tabling it.
Okay.
See, yeah, that's why, yeah, we had a
Oh,
pretty
okay.
clear agenda except for the one item.
That was news to me, but okay, so that item is not going forward, so just skip over it, you don't need to even.
So we-
They just weren't ready yet to make a presentation, so.
Do we need to do anything?
No.
No, well, it's
Nothing.
for
It's a
pre-application.
pre-application.
Oh, it's
so
pre-application, right,
there's
I'm sorry,
no-
yep, yep.
There's no application
Okay.
to act on,
Good.
it doesn't need to be.
So under 6B now, we have the bond,
The bond,
bond
James Bond.
removal discussion. So there's a memo from Victor, and then Ron, you had some questions?
So the memo, if you don't mind me jumping
Yes,
right in,
please.
the memo does finish up with that the last of the $9,000 items would have been the pins and mons throughout the subdivision, which the design engineer and land surveyor, same person, did clarify to me via email that those were all pinned and installed. The other item was the street trees, which we had them remove trees along the edge of road along Totucket Road and regrade the road, so it created a snow shelf. They did leave a portion of those trees that were in good condition, and in anticipating where the driveways were gonna come out, they obviously took the trees out, and we dealt with sight lines and removing some other trees. So they did leave a substantial amount of trees along the Totucket Road frontage. And the last item, is it down there? Refresh me. I gave away my last letter.
Pins, street
Pins,
trees.
mons.
That was it. It was pins,
Just-
concrete monuments, and street trees.
That was it.
Street trees. Say that 5 times fast. Street trees, street trees.
You can keep it now.
That's fine.
Okay,
Property pins, mons, and street trees, okay.
any discussion on this?
So it's been done.
It's been, right, everything's been done to, I guess I'd say, my satisfaction.
Yes.
And actually, the re-subdivision expired, at least according to, well, not really. Not according to COVID standards, it didn't expire, it has like multiple years tacked on top of it, but the developer was still working with the original expiration date, which was earlier in October. And I told him, look, it looks like, we have all this extra time to keep this open, but we both agreed that, well, he's satisfied everything, he's
Yes.
moving forward now with developing the individual lots, so we're at that point where it's safe to say that this is the last $9,002 of the original $99,130 bond. So it's already been decreased along the way as the subdivision process through
Yep.
the requirements.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, there's a motion, if someone wants to make a motion. Oh, you don't, I thought you had it. I thought everyone had it.
Nope.
Sorry about that.
I move to fully release the bond in the amount of $9,000 of planning and zoning application 2005/6-22, re-subdivision 10 lots, 942 Totucket Road, assessor map 56, lot 55B, N/F, lot 2, re-subdivision 1195 Middletown Avenue, R40 zone, owner applicant Joseph, Charleglio, Northern Developers, AKA Luanchi Construction LLC, based on the town engineer's assessment that all work associated with the property, pins, concrete monuments, and street trees has been completed.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Trish?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Motion passes.
Sometimes when you read these things, it's like another
Or not.
language.
So Trish read it. Robert, sorry,
I
second.
wrote on
Can I,
it.
keep it?
Yes, you can keep that.
Okay, next order of business, under 7, town planners report.
Okay, I have been in contact with applicant's counsel, pre-applicant's counsel, and engineer on the proposed Fowler Road senior housing. We have just an application, but no plans, no fee, nothing else. They had promised they were gonna get it to me in time for tonight's meeting. It never happened. At this point, I have arranged to meet with them next Thursday to go over everything and make sure they really are in fact ready to submit something. But I didn't want the timeline starting while they weren't ready. So I just told them, don't even bother to try and submit something until we really know it's ready to roll.
Yeah, that seems-
So at this point in time, again, I've been in fairly regular contact with Attorney Corso regarding this. I think we're sort of putting things in place so that it will be submitted in place for your November 4th meeting. At that point, we will set up a public hearing for a couple months out from that, or a couple weeks, or a couple meetings out from that, rather. And we'll get the process going. But I didn't want you to have to walk away with incomplete plans and then
Yeah.
have them come back with
Yeah.
new
that's for
plans
sure.
2 weeks later and
I
all
agree.
the rest of it. So
Thank you.
there is, just so you're aware, also a discussion regarding the fee. Per our fee schedule and per the regulation that they themselves created, the application fee on this is about $14,000. They obviously are grumpy about having to pay $14,000 for an application fee. So expect them to ask you to reduce the amount of the fee to something less than $14,000. But again, the actual fee schedule is perfectly clear as to what they owe. They just would rather not have to pay as much as that as they can avoid paying that full amount. So be ready for them to ask for some sort of reduction.
Oh,
in that
we're
number.
ready, don't worry.
Life is only so simple.
Friday special.
Yep.
Okay, good, thank you. Appreciate that.
And that's really all I've
Anything
got,
else?
folks.
Okay. Welcome again,
Thank you.
4 days in.
I'll come back
Any-
tomorrow, I promise.
Yes, please. Next meeting, November 4th, please be here.
November 4th. Is tomorrow payday?
Shall see you next Wednesday in the
Um,
Get the paycheck yet?
I don't get a paycheck until a couple weeks out, because this is the,
Make sure it clears, I know these people.
I already submitted the direct deposit thing, so it's getting directly deposited. so
Ron,
that-
take us out.
So before we adjourn.
Oh, yes.
I got a question, right? So is there in these commission meetings ever public comment? Just wanted to ask the question.
Not unless it's the public hearing.
Nothing that's a public hearing?
No,
Okay.
then that's on the specific item.
Yeah, that's on a specific
Yeah.
item. I mean, the difficulty with quote-unquote public comment is then you get into sort of ex parte communication regarding applications. Generally, you
Okay.
want communications tied to a specific application, because you don't really want someone up there under public comment saying, oh, that thing you did an hour ago, I want to add one more thing. because then we're outside the record, and the public hearing may be closed,
Right.
and they still wanna talk about it,
Okay.
so.
But it is on the record and it can be, you could create bias and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so, yeah,
That's why it's like,
it's
yeah.
hard to just have random comments that are not associated with a particular application.
Okay, that makes
Okay.
sense. I have one or two more items. On our discussion earlier, off the record, but on the record, Northford District, North Brantford District, how do we move forward with an overlay scheme for the planning of conservation and development as a commission to move that idea forward? It's been, 2019 was our initial inception with a lot of P and Z issues that we need to act on according to that. How do we move forward as a commission to kind of give a global, holistic approach to each of the districts as a commission? What's the process to move that forward?
Well, that's entirely up to you folks. I mean, honestly, unless there's some group tasked with moving on it, it's never gonna get moved on. I mean, what I would probably recommend, if you're serious about doing this, is create some sort of subcommittee, not just of this group, but of other people who might be interested, and then have basically every quarter or so reports from them to this commission as a whole as to where things stand, just so that you're getting a check-in, of what's going on and what they think should happen, and what they think you should do or anybody else should do. But right now, it's never on your agenda, so you're never really gonna talk about it. So I would create some group whose job it is to review this, and then I would create some path for them to come back to you every so often to say, this is what we're talking about, this is what we think needs to happen. And that's really the best way to try and make progress on an issue of that sort.
Okay.
Okay?
Does that make sense for you guys?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just what's that path and how to define it?
Well,
Yeah.
I know you're.
Still kind of up here
Well, I know
for us.
you're out kind of, without a chair, or permanent chair at the moment, and you're short members, so it's not really the best time to create subcommittees. But, I mean, ultimately, if you want me to reach out to sort of other groups in town who you think would be interested in adding members to this, I can certainly figure out who I can reach out to try and get people involved. But you should have at least one or two people from your body involved in that group as well, just to make sure that whatever the priorities that you set forth in the POCD are being reflected in that group's agenda. So,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know who from this group would be involved, but again, we can certainly talk about creating some sort of subcommittee of different groups to work on moving that project forward.
Okay.
Okay?
So somehow, I guess we just need a pathway to get to move further than what we've been doing.
Absolutely, and it is a
Rather
good
than
point.
just kicking the can down the road, basically.
Right.
Well, and
I
again,
was just
what-
I'm trying to think in my head, is it just soliciting people we know or think, or that we communicate it somehow and get people that are interested to come
Well,
to you or something? I
mean,
don't know.
here's, you probably don't want a subcommittee of more than about 5 or 6 people
Yeah.
total, or nothing's gonna happen.
Mhm.
So, I don't mind sort of throwing it open to a wider group of people to come in, but then we need a way to, if 20 people suddenly decide that they're interested, to cull down the group so that we have a workable
Yeah.
subcommittee.
No, I agree, yeah.
So, again, I'm comfortable if you want to have it put on the website, or if you want to put it in the paper, or wherever you want to do it. We can certainly
I was just thinking
solicit
out loud.
input
Yeah.
of people who are interested in attending. The trick is going to be, if this proves to be a wildly popular group and everybody wants to join, then actually getting workable results. So that's the key, is having a small enough group that you actually can sit down in a room and get someplace without feeling like you're just picking your favorites and only getting the conclusion that you already knew you wanted in the first place, so.
It's like a soccer game, you're gonna see the same faces.
Yeah, we had the plan of conservation development workshops as we were working on that, and like 20 people showed up. I think we had food and things to drink and picky food, and we still got only 20 people, so.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
again,
think Scott Small, if we
Yeah,
could
that-
get him.
that head. And who's the gentleman, Steve Nugent?
Nugent,
He's the
yeah, Steve
gentleman that
Nugent.
Did a phenomenal
Yeah, maybe people
little,
like that.
not
I
little.
I think we have contact information for them too, yeah, because he
Yeah.
submitted something to your committee.
Yeah,
committee
very
already, right?
thorough and
Sky,
It's
right?
part of
well
that,
done.
the design district
Right, right.
commission anyway, or whatever. Yeah.
okay, well, what I
People
will
like
try
that,
and
yeah.
do over the next couple of days here is like send out to you folks a list of possible people who might be able or interested in attending here, and then have you tell me, okay, contact this, these people and see if they're interested or not.
Rob, let me see if it's in my email, because I don't think you were on when that came in. It's quite
And
thorough.
then, so there's two distinct districts, so we probably want to narrow it down to just one at a time kind of thing. That will kind of give the flavor for the, Route 80 is kind of different than Northford, more or less. It's more industrial than village kind of flair, I'll call it.
Yeah, I suspect you probably want two different groups in the sense that, I don't want there to be a sense that the Northford people are telling the Route 80 people how they should live their lives and vice versa. So you probably want Northford people deciding Northford things and, you know, North Brantford people deciding North Brantford things and, you know, so.
How long have you been here?
Only 4 days,
So
but.
so just so I'm clear, because I'm now getting confused, what is your intention? You're not talking about the two district areas, you're talking about the pieces of our plan of conservation, like some of that action list that's
Yeah,
in the
and that
plan
action
of
list.
conservation development. We should start acting on some of those things, right?
Yes.
Right, holistically,
That
so, yeah.
action list also incorporates that overall overlay for village
No,
of
yeah,
Brantford.
yes,
and-
absolutely.
And Route 80, so that's part of the whole.
Okay, so you are
dynamic
talking the
of
overlay though, too.
Yeah, but
Right.
what we decide has to be usable in both North Branford and Northford. I mean, it's not,
That's my
If the
sensitivity,
town-
we
the
have to
town
be
is
very
North
careful that
Branford.
we don't, because there's enough of that distinction, we're trying to
Yes.
not have that distinction,
Right.
so.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
We're
then-
one, we're one,
We're
town.
one town.
We're
and I-
one town.
But, okay, so, okay,
So can, let me
It's-
interrupt
yeah,
for a
A
second.
diverse group.
So the only distinction, Bill, is that Northford is historic in the sense that our regs call it 1950 era
Mm-hmm.
or earlier. I don't think such a thing exists for Route
Yeah,
80
yeah, no,
North
right.
Brantford.
Yeah.
So they're already distinct unto themselves.
absolutely.
So that leads us into the next part of the conversation that we started with originally was, we have a lighting spec as far as that goes, that's, how should I say, ancient? Doesn't
Not
really
up to-
fit
not up
the.
to date.
Not up to date, thank you. That
Okay.
somehow we need to look at that spec regulation to kind of improve it. And again, on the same
Well-
vein, how do we do that? Do we do that, is it
Well-
cart before the, egg before the chicken, or whatever, cart before the horse? In
I,
order to develop overlay, if we don't
Maybe-
have the regs to.
Maybe the first,
Fit into it.
maybe the first idea is to actually go through our plan of conservation development, and maybe we clarify what exactly the intent
Yeah, I
of this
mean-
team
Yeah,
is,
he's-
and then we
that's
can
what
form
he
the
said.
team, because I'm not
That's
even
what
sure,
it is.
I didn't think I know what you mean, but we should clarify what we want to
I will
do
go
first.
through it, I'll come back in a couple of weeks
Yeah.
with some thoughts. But again, I think what I see with combined planning and zoning commissions is that the zoning piece is easy to see each month because it's on your agenda with certain things. The planning piece, because it's sort of nebulous, unless you have it coming in every few months with, where are we, it never really gets moved on. So if you want to have a POCD implementation committee and just call it that, you can do that. But at least having somebody whose job it is to just look at the POCD and say, where are we and what are we doing? And reporting back to you folks and saying, guys, we got to do X, is probably a useful tool. But let me look through the POCD and sort of come up with a list of things that need to be acted upon per your POCD, and the best sort of committee route, I think, that might get you there, so, okay?
Ron, what's your email? Is it this one?
You have that done by tomorrow, right?
Yeah, that's it.
By 8:30, yeah.
Robert, anything else? You said you had two things.
They were the two, the
Oh,
POCD
got it.
and related to the regulations.
Gotcha, Okay, good. All right,
Thank you.
yeah. Anything else? We didn't adjourn yet, right?
No, you have not adjourned.
Nope.
Oh, we're
Tee
still
it up,
talking.
Ron. Or
No.
anything
Any
else?
anything else? Okay.
I'll take over from this.
Yes, please. Ron?
Item 8 on our agenda, I motion we adjourn.
All right.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, everyone. Welcome again, Eric.
Thank you. Again, I need someone to sign my minutes here, so you're one, I need the second signature on the minutes here, so.
Chairman.